Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ask Kati Anything. Today I am joined by a good friend of mine, Dr. Ben Rein. Ben is a neuroscientist, a science communicator, and author, which we'll get into. And I met him, we were just talking about it back in 2021. We came out for an event in New York, and now we're back together to hear about all the things you've been working on.
Yeah. Talk about neuroscience, talk about social interaction. And well, first off, thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's exciting to be here and do a podcast in person because you don't get to do this very often. But the book, comes out October 14th. It's called Why Brains Need Friends. And general background, I'm a neuroscientist. I study social behavior. I've always been interested in why everyone is kind of different, right? People are either really outgoing or really shy, which led me down that path. And now with this growing sort of understanding that we're too isolated and we're not interacting enough, I thought it would be helpful to write a book in accessible language that anybody can read and understand about the actual science of social interaction and isolation, and really trying to clarify like what's at stake in the brain. Why did the U.S. Surgeon General say we're in a loneliness epidemic? Like, why does it matter? Because I think people are getting aware that that's a problem, but maybe don't understand exactly what's sort of the mechanical changes happening back there in the brain and why those are concerning outcomes.
I agree for different reasons. Obviously I'm not a neuroscientist, but as a clinician, as a therapist, I know that even my audience, they're showing I think, I don't just want to say higher rates of depression, but I would just say depressive symptoms. I also find that people are more angry in general, which I think I hypothesize is due to lack of connection, because, and this kind of is like why I would assume, and when COVID was happening, I was like, fuck, this is going to be terrible, is that when I talk to patients who are having a hard time, who are feeling really dysregulated, I always use, it's from AA. This has nothing to do with addiction, but it's called HALT is the acronym. And it's like, before I respond to you, let's say I'm just having a really shitty time, before I say anything or do anything or like fight with my husband, I check in, I do HALT, stop. Am I hungry? That's me, hangriness. But then angry, am I lonely or am I tired? And I think that loneliness piece is like, I know that through connection, like our nervous system is soothed. Like there's a lot of research. I mean, whether it's, is it Dr. Stephen Porges with the polyvagal theory?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Oh, that's in my space. So it's like somatic experiencing and stuff like that. So there are different ways that our nervous system is soothed through connection.
Yeah.
That's also part of like when you're a baby and your mom, you're breastfeeding, you make eye contact, like that's soothing to your system. What do we find in the brain specifically? So I'm talking like the body and connection and attachment. What's going on in the brain when I feel connected to someone, and how does that make me feel better or be better? Okay,
there's so much in this space. I want to first address the loneliness-induced anger or frustration or irritability. For the human brain and body, loneliness and isolation are stress. We are meant for connection, and this goes, predates this conversation by millions of years. Like evolutionarily, we survive great in groups. It's good for us to work together. And so our brains are wired so that we feel good being around others. And on the other hand of that, think about in an ancient world, you're in a group, you're surviving really well, and then you break off from that group and you're on your own and you're living in the woods or whatever, a jungle. The brain would be wise to have a built-in system that makes you feel irked, that this is not right. You need to get back to your community because you might die. And so we have these built-in stress systems. Like I said, isolation is stress. When people are isolated, cortisol starts rising like within a few days.
A few days?
Yeah,
wow.
And when you look at studies on like where you can kind of isolate someone in a either deliberate way where someone goes into, they know they're being isolated, they go into like a NASA pod for 30 days and they track their cortisol levels, they go up. But also in more like happenstance situations where, for instance, people are going to the hospital and they have a transmittable illness. They have a virus, and so they're isolated to prevent it from spreading. And if you compare the outcomes of those patients in the hospital who have been isolated versus not, there are more adverse events for the people who are isolated. And so what I'm ultimately getting at is, cortisol stress is bad. The reason why someone may feel more irritable after being isolated for a period is the same reason why we're in New York City. I just felt irritable walking on the sidewalk, and the person in front of me is like going really slow. It's like, come on, I gotta get somewhere to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's stress, it's frustration, and so you're triggering that stress response biologically in the brain when you're isolated. And
that kind of makes sense then. And this, I might be way off base, but I feel like this is the same when it comes, because I used to be very interested in like the prison system and rehabbing people, recidivism rates, all of that.
Yeah.
There's a reason that the worst thing they can do to you when you're already in prison is put you in isolation.
100%.
Because like makes you lose your mind essentially.
Yeah, and that's another one of those examples where you can sort of like the hospital stays. Horrible statistics on this. When there's a study of over 200,000 prisoners, and they looked at those who were isolated for any amount of time during their stay versus those who weren't. Those who were isolated were 24% more likely to die within a year after they were released.
Wow.
From any length of isolation during their stay. And I think the numbers, they were like 78% more likely to die by suicide. Isolation is just, it's toxic.
So what do you have to say then? Because I hear a lot, and I've argued a lot with my audience about this. I love you guys, but sometimes it's tricky, is the people who will say, I am an introvert. I actually don't like being around people.
Yeah.
My argument to them is always like, you're part of this community. You're talking to me right now, you know? But why do people feel that way, do you think?
Yeah, well, I've actually gotten a little bit of that as well. You know, I did an interview, and somebody messaged me and basically said, you know, it kind of sounds like you're pathologizing introversion, that you're making it like it's a disease to not interact. And it's the opposite. I mean, yes, interacting is good for you and healthy. And introverts may be less motivated to interact. But the truth is, I'm an extrovert. I hate to be the guy who's like, well, the data say this. Like, I don't know what it's like to be an introvert. But the studies that have looked at this, they find that when introverts have like a single interaction, as long as it's not like a week, like a family vacation for a week, you know, like a single sit down interaction for 10 or 15 minutes or an hour, they feel better after. And they, you know, it's good for them just the same, but that threshold to where they get to that, like, no, thank you, I'm finished, please, is much lower. And so if you have people pretend to be extroverted for like a week, they have to pretend to be outgoing and, you know, whatever, charismatic and stuff and boisterous. After that week, people who are, you know, extroverted, more higher on trait extroversion measurements, they will feel amazing after the week, but introverts will feel terrible.
Yeah,
it's
they're totally depleted.
Yeah, it's torture for them for a week. And so my answer to that question is basically, yeah, introverts benefit from interaction as well, just at much smaller doses. And so I think trying to create those opportunities and figuring out sort of what the best recipe is for an interaction. You know, in the book, I propose this idea of a social diet, where it's like, what are you taking in? You know, what foods or what interactions are you taking in? And I propose, actually, I'd love your take on this too, because, you know, this is your field, but I propose this idea of social journaling as well. And at the back of the book, in the appendix, I have this sort of journaling template where it's like, you get home from an interaction, you fill this out. Who are you with? You know, how many people? Where were you? What time was it? What would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10? And basically analyzing your interactions to identify like what is and isn't comfortable, and crafting your social diet. And so for an introvert, it might be like, oh, I noticed that, you know, one of the other questions is, how many interactions have you had recently? Like, what's your recent experience? And, you know, it's maybe you find that you feel uncomfortable in one-on-one conversations. You'd rather be with a group, or you don't like going to the bar on Friday night because it's shoulder to shoulder, and that's horrible for everybody, I think. I think we can all agree on that one.
Even us extra, yeah.
Yeah, but so figuring that out, and then once you can craft that and, you know, have a chance to leverage the true biological benefits of interaction occasionally, you know, at whatever cadence is comfortable.
I like that. First of all, I love journaling. Everybody knows I love journaling. But I think the thing that is a huge benefit to that is not only are you learning about what benefits you most or what feels best, but then you're also, I think, could weed out relationships that aren't helpful way earlier. Because that's something I think in my 20s that it took me, I mean, I think it does for everybody. Also in your 20s, people be like, how come we have so many more friends then? I'm like, because you have more time. You don't know who you are. So you're like, the group of people that you're interested in is much broader because you haven't narrowed.
Interesting, yeah.
And also, I think the socialization is much more, it's like higher level, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there was a weekend that one of my friends wasn't doing something that I could, but now my friends have kids and life's complicated and we work and we're traveling, life is life. And so being able to notice when certain relationships are just taking from you. Like I've talked a lot with my audience about what I call breath in relationships. And it's not, I didn't coin that term breath in. It's just part of, I think it's Brené Brown had said, if you're always breathing out, you'll just pass out. So you need breath in with your life. And some relationships are that breath in. And I think if you're doing the activity in your book, it's like, that would allow you to see like, hey, I think this is all like they're just taking. It's all give on my part. Yeah. And it's not that we need to keep a record, like I took and gave, but it's like, do you feel recharged? Do you feel good? Because, and then I guess my question to you is, with that in mind, it sounds like it's not just social interaction that's good for our brain, but maybe certain kinds or something? Or am I way off there?
I mean, I can't answer that from like a scientific lens.
I was like, I'm going off script. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I mean, I think the answer is basically like lived experience, right? Everybody knows that whatever, they enjoy certain things more than others. They don't, whatever, Christmas time with the family is either magical or horrible, right? Like we all have those kind of filters that we apply. But the idea of the social journal is really to more, and not to like sit down and statistically analyze like, okay, let's map this out on a bar chart, but that you can come home from something and sit down and journal, right? You're sitting and you're thinking about the interaction, and maybe coming home and taking your mind off of like, oh, I said that one thing and I'm a little anxious about whether that came off right. It's like, no, let me just step back from all those thoughts and focus on how do I feel right now in general, and maybe use that to help configure future interactions.
Gotcha. So there isn't like because I'm thinking like toxic friendships or people, but that doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that falls into what I'm saying of like lived experience, right? Like you get home and you're like, man, this person is such a like drag to talk to, right? It's every time, it's the same stuff and they're always complaining or whatever,
Yeah.
That should hopefully fall into the social journal where it's like, oh yeah, I just noticed that, now that I'm actually thinking about it. So, but I mean, I totally agree with what you said about, not all friendships are worth keeping. And there's no doubt, again, anecdotally through lived experience, there is some people that you just click with better and that you just are more breath in. I really like that term. And I think that's a great way to distill all of this into one simple thing. Do you feel energized by this interaction? Do you feel energized by this person? Or do you feel depleted? And that's really important.
Do we know, now I'm really going off script. Do we know in the brain, is there, if let's say we could do like fMRIs or I don't know what it would be, where you could watch people interacting, can you see a good interaction versus a bad interaction? Or is it more like interaction or no interaction?
That's a good question. I mean, okay, earlier when you asked me a question, I'm like, man, there's so much to say, and I went one route. I'm going to go the other route that I never got to, and it's about social reward in the brain. So I mentioned that, you break off from your tribe, your brain says, feel stress so that you go back home.
Go back to your group.
Yeah. On the other hand, okay, what happens when you get to your group? What happens when you find people that you like? The brain has these social reward systems. So psychology, something that's reinforcing. If it feels good and it feels pleasurable, you will be more likely to do that thing again in the future. And this is generally thought to be like a dopamine thing, right? Dopamine is reinforcing. So oxytocin, which is the, I forget what the people call it, the love hormone.
The feel-good chemical. Yeah, I always call it one of the feel-good chemicals. But yeah, people call it the love hormone.
So when the parent-child relationship is established, there's a ton of oxytocin flowing in the brains and bodies of both the parents and the child to make sure that they stick together, because the baby's super vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Who's going to take care of baby if parents don't want to take care of baby? So, but that oxytocin, it does the same thing in like romantic relationships, friendships, presumably, because what oxytocin does is it drives the social reward through driving downstream dopamine and serotonin. So, and if you really want to get into the, intricacies of the brain, but most of the oxytocin is produced in a brain area called the paraventricular nucleus.
Okay.
That sends signals to the ventral tegmental area, which is the primary dopamine source in the brain, and it appears to drive dopamine release through that. So there's the inherent, reinforcing effects of interaction. And then oxytocin also projects to a brain area called the nucleus accumbens, which is involved in motivation. And in the accumbens, it drives the release of serotonin. And so there's a bunch of research super interesting on that particular neurochemical signal, serotonin in the nucleus accumbens, including some of my own research. And essentially, this is in mice because you can't do this in humans, but if you stimulate serotonin release in the nucleus accumbens, which again, that's what oxytocin does, mice will just automatically become more interested in interacting. They will spend more time interacting. If you do that in your standard mouse, that happens. If you do that in a mouse model of autism, that happens. So if you take a genetic mutation associated with autism in humans and you induce that same genetic change in a mouse, stimulate serotonin, they become very social. And the way my own research ties into this is at Stanford, I was studying the neuroscience of empathy and specifically how MDMA, or ecstasy, enhances empathy. And I found...
This episode is sponsored by Green Chef. Fall is hands down my favorite season. I love when the air gets crisp, the sweaters come out, and everything just feels a little cozier. It's also the time of year when I try to slow down and get back to my healthy routines, and that's where Green Chef really helps. They make it so easy to eat well without spending hours in the kitchen. I've been using Green Chef for a while now, and I love how it takes the stress out of meal prep. Their recipes use fresh, organic, seasonal produce and responsibly sourced protein, so I know I'm nourishing my body with good quality ingredients. Lately, I've been loving their Mediterranean and gut and brain health meals. They're so flavorful and genuinely make me feel good after eating them. Plus, they've just launched their new Heat and Eat meals, which are ready in just about 3 minutes. Perfect for those busy days when I want something really healthy but quick. Make this fall your healthiest yet with Green Chef. Head to greenchef.com/50askkatie and use code 50askkatie to get 50% off your first month. Then 20% off for 2 months with free shipping. That's code 50askkatie at greenchef.com/50askkatie. Green Chef. Nourish your body, fuel your fall.
At Stanford, I was studying the neuroscience of empathy and specifically how MDMA, or ecstasy, enhances empathy. And I found that it came down to that same signal, serotonin in the nucleus accumbens.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, sorry to make you pause there for a sec, but then I do know, because I have a girlfriend she works with MAPS.
Cool.
So doing tons of research in psilocybin, MDMA, all that stuff, ketamine, something she can talk about, something she can't. But I had mentioned this to her where I was like, well, I know back in the day when people would use it recreationally, so they would use ecstasy like in a club setting, that the comedown is horrible, everybody says. Is that because we've like dumped all the good juices, like there's nothing left almost? Like you're going back and like serotonin's like there's nothing there. The oxytocin's like, I'm pooped out.
That's right. It's like serotonin and dopamine. So MDMA acts on 3 neurotransmitters: serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine.
Okay.
And it does exactly that. It some drugs, they come in and they like bind the receptors and they act like they'll act like their serotonin, which wouldn't affect the existing serotonin there. But what MDMA does is it just causes it to be just spurted out everywhere. It exists at like intense levels. And so that does lead to depletion of the resources of serotonin. I'm not sure. For me, I can like literally picture like these stores of serotonin and dopamine, and then MDMA comes in and it's like dumps it all out. And then, when you're coming down, it's like, whoa, this feels quite bad. Kind of similar to like Narcan. So this is when people overdose on opioids and they're given Narcan, which blocks opioid receptors. So,
is that what it does? Because we have a park by our house, so we got Narcan from the state of Texas. I'll just send it to you just in case somebody, I hope don't want to have to use it, but we have it on hand. And so that blocks, so essentially just stops your body from processing.
Yeah, well, so it blocks up those opioid receptors, and so which effectively prevents you from overdosing because the drug can no longer bind to them.
Interesting. So it has a higher affinity for those receptor sites. Interesting.
But when that happens and you're going from whatever, maybe let's say it's a fentanyl overdose, you're going from super high dose of fentanyl, very pain relieving effect, and all of a sudden you block all those receptors. It's like horrible experience because you're like completely inverting to the other end of the like
the
emotional.
Come down. You're like, and you're like, man, I feel terrible.
So it's kind of similar to that. What you're describing is very real. The come down. There is one study that There are skeptics of this study. I am kind of one of them. But basically, they showed that if they gave people MDMA in a clinical setting, they hydrated them throughout, and took good care of them, then the people didn't have that come down. And so there's this sort of that created this speculation that maybe all that what we're talking about is sort of a byproduct of the fact that people often use MDMA like at a club, drinking alcohol, jumping around, dancing for hours,
sweating, and
not hydrating, staying up late, and then they're the next day like, wow, I feel terrible.
It's almost like a hangover, right? If you like drank a bunch of Gatorade while you were also drinking alcohol or whatever, had a banana, took care of yourself, then maybe you wouldn't feel quite so shitty the next day.
Yeah. Right. I mean, like historically, the way people use MDMA is not like, oh, I'm going to lay on a couch and do therapy, right? It's like, I'm going to jump and dance for like 8 hours straight.
Yeah.
Like you would feel horrible. But, anyways, all that to say, who knows? I do definitely think regardless, like I said, I'm a skeptic of that study. I do think that there's still some depletion effect that you're probably going to feel after.
Okay, before we move on, where do people find your book?
Hopefully anywhere.
Everywhere books are sold. It's called Brains Need Friends.
Why Brains Need Friends.
Why Brains Need Friends.
And Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all those places. But yeah, it's out October 14th.
How exciting. What prompted you to write this?
Like I said, we've been societally slipping deeper and deeper into isolation. It's kind of scary when when I was writing the book, I started looking into the numbers like, whoa, from 2013 to 2021, the amount of time people spent alone increased by 36 hours per month.
Holy shit.
We're spending an entire work week by ourselves that we weren't doing 10 years ago. And that's, considering what I said about the fact that interaction is rewarding, so there's value in it, and isolation is stress. And by the way, we didn't even really get into the like health consequences of all that, which we can.
Oh yeah.
It's concerning. And as a neuroscientist in this field, there was just so much information that I was privy to that when I would talk to my friends, or it wouldn't really come up like, hey, you guys hear about the isolation? But when I would get into those conversations, I'm like, okay, wait. So I think I've been kind of blind to the fact that I know a lot more about this because of the field I'm in than the average person. And it's an important topic, and a big part of what I do in my career is I try to make science accessible and clear. And when I recognize that deficit, the knowledge deficit, I should say, especially in the context of like we're falling into this isolation pit, I was thinking, whoa, I think we need to do something about this.
Yeah.
And by the way, what we're talking about, the isolation and interaction and all that, that's basically chapters 1 and 2. And then the rest of the book, I answer a bunch of other questions that people are probably interested in, like, digital interactions.
That's what I was going to get into next, because I'm curious. I mean, obviously, so there's a few pieces here. My brain, when you said 2013, I'm like, that's interesting because of the rise of social media. Now, I started my career on YouTube back in 2011, and that was when it was like cat video. I mean, I was very early. Like, I remember trying to collab with people, and they're like, I don't really talk. I don't do that. And like, understandable. You just do beauty, or you just do comedy or whatever. Now it's a whole like. The way that it's grown is like, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
In a good and bad way. And I think that some people don't go out socially because they can get quote unquote social connection online. Is it the same quality? Or are we talking like I'm having, I don't know, a hamburger, or I'm having a filet mignon?
Great question. So first off, I think part of the reason that it is like you can get that social interaction online is because of this fact that we are wired for connection, and that we have these social reward systems. Because, if you have you're invited out by a friend, let's actually imagine a scenario, right? You're invited out by a friend, it's a Saturday night, and you had a kind of a tiring week, and you're like, I said I would go, but I kind of want to flake, and, it's a lot of work. I got to get ready, and I got to find a ride and whatever. There's all this stuff. And then if you think about the alternatives, it's, let's say you want to like listen to a podcast, right? This is a social dynamic where you're having a conversation. And so by listening to it, it's like maybe it's kind of tickling those social reward systems in the brain just a little bit.
Because they could be like the third person.
Right.
Hanging out with us.
It's like you're sitting at the bar having a beer with your friends, and you're kind of listening to the conversation. Or, I just think it's so funny when you think about entertainment. Let's think about TV, like Bravo. it's all relationship dynamics. It's people
Drama.
arguing. It's drama, right? You think about it's almost impossible to think of any successful entertainment program, a TV program, that doesn't involve like social dynamics. It almost always comes down to that. Like
Friendships, relationships, it's always that,
Yeah,
right? Whether
romance.
it's Seinfeld, whether it's Sex and the City, whatever it is.
it's like, I could go hang out with my friends, or I could sit here and like tickle those oxytocin receptors maybe a little bit by watching, this person on my TV show fall in love, or, do something heroic and gain social approval, or, or come back from something really difficult and earn pride. Like, it's acting on those brain systems. But when it comes to the actual value, I don't think any studies have compared like social interaction versus watching TV, because those are so distinct. But there is a lot of evidence showing that the less lifelike your interactions are. So as we go from real life to, let's say, a video call, less lifelike. Phone call, less lifelike. Text, less lifelike. I'm not sure
It's
there's
like more
anything.
and more distant from human to human interaction.
Right. And you can actually imagine or outline all of the social cues that are being stripped away, like as you go from in-person to video, like you lose eye contact. You cannot make eye contact through the phone. You lose, or through the screen, you lose olfactory cues, smell any scent cues. Then you go down to phone call, you're losing body language, you're losing a lot, but it's basically just tone of voice that's left. Then you go down to text, no tone of voice. It's just words. It's just empty,
Well,
hollow
inflection
words.
can get confusing. People can start fights on accident. This is why I do podcasts in person, is because in order for Zoom calls to look normal, I have to look at the camera. So I'm not actually making eye contact with you, even though it's through a screen. And I know that's not ideal. Then it loses something for me in conversation, where I don't really quite feel like I'm with you. Like it's like it takes extra oomph to try to, and it just never, it almost just feels like it's never as good.
Yeah.
Ugh. And I hate it.
Right. Oh, and there's that delay too, where a lot of times someone's talking and you're like, oh, I really want to interject and like, let's zoom in on that. But then you kind of miss it because there's a delay, and then it just kind of, 10 seconds later, you've completely forgotten what you were going to say, and like the conversation goes on. It's much more dynamic in person. But what I was going to say is basically, as we get less lifelike, the mood improvements, the mood benefits sort of dwindle. People feel less good after texting with someone than they do interacting in person, or even like video chat, which makes sense. You're like flattening the texture of this experience into this dull, iPhone or whatever text, right?
Yeah.
Text on the screen, which can provide much less value. But it may not be so bad. So texting is still better than nothing.
Okay.
That's the good news.
So some connections better than no connections.
Yes. Yeah. And we're not even going to talk about large language models.
I was like, that's his whole, we'll have you on again.
Yeah. We could.
That's its own bag of worms. Like, because I thought of that immediately. I'm like, what about people using that? Because a lot of my audience uses ChatGPT to like have conversations.
Yeah.
But we'll put a pin in that for another time.
Yeah. I think that's so fascinating. And it's just, another direction. Like there's a door open in humanity, and now we're like heading in this other direction that was unforeseen, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
It's like, I feel like we're all in tubes. We didn't realize, and the water started rushing, and they've opened this dam, and it's like, we're all going, like whether you want to
Yeah,
or not,
right.
it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. But the other piece of good news is, so there's this thing that happens in interaction called interbrain synchrony. It happens sometimes, not always. And it is what it sounds like. It's two brains synchronize. And it's not across the entire brain. It's certain parts of the brain. And it depends on what you're doing. It's so
like twins. Is it part of the?
well, yeah.
Or is that a whole nother like? It'd be like if you and I work together day in and day out, we start to like sync up.
Oh, it's more of like in a moment. It's like within
okay.
a specific moment when either people are collaborating on a task, so like working together, or having a shared experience. So for instance, there is evidence, you take people at a concert, strap them into some brain scanner, obviously not like a full fMRI tube, that'd be like a wild concert, just fMRI tubes everywhere. No, like EEG caps or something, something portable.
Yep.
And you measure their brain activity, and what they find is that people's brain activity synchronizes, but only in specific moments. It's at like during periods of like intense musical pleasure. So like usually at like if it's like a techno concert, like the drop, right? That kind of thing. The study was actually doing, it was done in like an orchestra. So not there. I don't think there were any drops.
Wait for the beat.
But yeah, so that's one of them. Sort of ideas like shared experiences, but also collaboration. So, the example I use in the book, and I'll use it here because it's easy, is, you think about when you're passing a stranger on the sidewalk, and it's a narrow sidewalk, and you're trying to kind of collaborate quietly to make sure that neither of you steps in the puddle, or, the grass is wet. And so, you don't say anything, but you're working together and kind of navigating around each other. That kind of thing, you might see interbrain synchrony. And like I said, it depends on the task, which brain areas it engages. So, if you're doing like a math task together, you're working together on something, it might have you might synchronize in different brain areas than if it's walking on the sidewalk together.
Yeah.
Anyways, the reason I brought all that up, which is such a fascinating sidebar, is that there's actually some evidence showing that when mothers and daughters text, they can engage interbrain synchrony, but only in that like special pairing, which is really fascinating because also interbrain synchrony happens more in parent-child bonds and in romantic relationships than between
So it must
like
be
friends.
some attachment-based something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it does get interesting because it's like, well, maybe it's like a genetic thing, right? Like
yeah, and there's so many. That's why I love the brain. That's why I love people. That's why I love what I do. It's so fascinating. And there's so many questions with it, right? Like in mother-daughter, it is, I mean, I have a very good relationship with my mom, and like I feel like that relationship is definitely very special. Same with my grandma. It was just different than any other relationship.
Yeah. And that starts early too. That like interbrain synchrony can happen, I think it's like before 9 months. Like if they did some studies where they had a baby and their mother, and they showed interbrain synchrony. But what's really interesting is that in that study, when they put a stranger, a woman of the same approximate age as the mother, the interbrain synchrony stopped. So it's specific to the mother. But then they gave they put a T-shirt that smelled like the mother in front of the baby, and the baby started to synchronize with the other woman, even though it wasn't their mother.
Oh, but it smelled.
Yeah,
that's a hormone. Yeah,
super interesting.
So
right?
interesting.
And going back to where I was talking about the lifelike interactions, and I said, you remove social smells. Some people listening to this or watching this might have thought, does that really matter though? Social smells. I mean, there's an example where it is the difference between interbrain synchrony or not.
Well, and a random thing I found out because I did research. This is like I went down a rabbit hole. Sometimes I do that. I'm looking for one thing and I'm like, this is interesting. And I found it was because a lot of my girlfriends, when they had a baby, for a while thought their husbands stunk.
Really?
And so I read about it because it's protective, because we can't have another baby right away. Like your body needs to heal.
Oh,
so you're like,
wow.
Ugh.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm
Be prepared.
So, right.
If she's like, why do you reek?
Yeah.
Be like,
That's
it's
good to
just
know.
protective.
Yeah.
I know you still love me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I probably would have been really insecure about that. Be like,
So now you know.
Yeah.
And it's actually, it doesn't happen with every person, but I forget the percentages. I'm going to make it up. It was like 62%. It was enough that I was like, that's very significant.
Wow.
And I've seen it with my friends, and it was probably relative to that amount, where it took them probably about 8 months to a year before it felt like it wasn't there anymore. And it's a gradient. At the very beginning, bleh, and then it got like incrementally better over time. And I forget what the study showed about how long what the markers were and how much the percentage of drop off, but they said within the first year, it's usually then you're fine.
Yeah.
Because you could technically then have another baby.
Yeah. Do you know, sorry, this is just pure curiosity. Like, what did it smell like? Was it just like an exaggeration of normal, like BO kind of thing? Or is it like, my husband smells like tuna fish? Like
it didn't smell like anything that you could distinctly put a finger on. Because I wondered if it was like, was it BO?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
It's not like, oh, you just stink. It's like, I don't like how you smell. Where before you could be like you love how they smell. And it's just like a protective mechanism so you don't try to have a baby.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, the brain
And some
is
of it
cool.
depended on also if the mom went on like birth control after, because some women do, some don't.
Okay.
And so I think that probably, I don't.
a hormonal thing.
Again, yeah, you have to dig in more.
Yeah.
Because I found it so fascinating. Because my sister-in-law was that way with my brother when they first had their baby. My girlfriend Kelsey was that way. And I'm like, whoa. And so that's when I was like, I have to read about this.
That's funny. I'm gonna have to ask around because there's been several women in my life who have recently had babies, and that's probably not something they would that information they would volunteer to
It
me.
wouldn't come up randomly.
Yeah, like,
Do you think your
like-
husband still stinks?
Yeah,
Does he smell as good as before?
I'm gonna ask. That's really, really interesting. They found that when men sniffed tears produced by, like, emotional tears produced by women.
Today's episode is sponsored by Headspace. You know when someone asks you, hey, how are you? And without even thinking, you say, I'm good, even if you're totally not. Well, I decided that when I say I'm good, I want to actually mean it. And that's why I've been using Headspace. Headspace helps me and over 100 million people take care of our mental health with guided meditations, mindfulness practices, breathing and calming exercises, and honestly, just a moment to slow down. I've noticed a real difference in my stress levels, my sleep, and my mood. What I love most is how personalized it feels. Whether I need help unwinding before bed, grounding myself before a busy workday, or just taking a few deep breaths between meetings, there's always something that fits exactly what I need. And if you're short on time, they have quick on-the-go practices that only take a few minutes but really help you reset. Feel good and mean it when you say it. For a limited time, get Headspace free for 60 days. Go to headspace.com/askkatie. That's HEADSPACE.com/askkatie to unlock all of Headspace free for 60 days. Headspace.com/askkatie.
They found that when men sniffed tears produced by, like, emotional tears produced by women, they became less aggressive. They did, like, this, psychology game where they were playing a financial game with another person in the study. They didn't realize the other person was an actor, but they were. And, sometimes the other player would basically just be a total jerk and, like, steal other money. And then they were given opportunities to basically punish them. Like, they wouldn't be stealing the other person's money. They would just be, like, deleting money from that other person's account. And when they had sniffed the emotional tears before, they had no idea what they were sniffing. It was, like, significant. It was like a 42% reduction in how likely they were to basically punish the other person and be aggressive. And they showed reduced activity in aggression-related brain areas after. And actually, they didn't sniff it and then go away. They sniffed the tears and then they actually taped a cotton pad underneath their nose with the smell.
So they're all getting it over and over and over.
The entire game. So it's like, 42% drop if you have it, like, stuck to your face right beneath your nose the entire time.
Yeah.
But the fact that it disengaged those aggression-related areas.
So fascinating.
Really interesting.
Well, I mean, we have a dog. You have a dog.
Yep.
And their whole life is like sniff. They live by the smell way more than we do. So I find that stuff fascinating because I know that we're not dogs, but we're all like creatures on this earth sharing things, and that might be something that we kind of share. We just are less attuned to it.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah. I mean, in dogs, they have something like 300 million olfactory receptors.
Yeah, it's like 5 times what we have or something. I don't even know.
It's
Probably
a lot.
more than that.
Yeah, maybe 10 times. I love dog science. Like, there's actually a chapter in the book about.
Yes, I have a random dog question at the end.
Yeah, I think it's the most fascinating thing. I'm a dog lover, and sometimes I get in conversation with someone who's not a dog lover, and they're just like, yeah, the science is, like, kind of interesting, but I'm like, it's so cool.
Yeah, dogs are so cool.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. I mean, dogs can sniff. So we don't really know how, but somehow dogs can, like, detect, like, physiological stress signals. That's how they can, they're
emotional supports. They can also know about diabetes. They can smell before you know that you need insulin or whatever. They can tell that, like, you should check yourself.
Yeah, and epilepsy.
Yeah.
They can detect seizures. Narcolepsy. They can detect sleep onset events.
I have a lot of members of my community with dogs that essentially help them live their life.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really cool too is I didn't realize, I always thought, okay, so dogs are they have this, they can smell stuff, and we've sort of trained them to use that ability for our benefit medically. But I didn't realize some of this stuff is just innate. Like, when there's this really cool study where they took sweat from people who have epilepsy, and they harvested sweat basically before and after seizures.
Harvested sweat. That sounds so funny.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just, like, throwing out these wild terms.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Scientists, we harvest sweat often. Yeah, that's funny. I guess that's, like, the way I thought of using it in the book, and I said it out loud. I was like, yeah, it does sound a little bit like a little freaky.
You, like, have sponges and you're like, thank you.
Yeah, actually, that's another good question. I don't know how they went about that. Anyways, when they apply that sweat from after or around a seizure from someone with epilepsy, and they apply it to non-epileptic, and they have that person's dog who's never been trained or anything, they will start like attending to their caregiver and looking at them more, and just like they will react. They without being trained, they just like,
they know
can sense
something's wrong.
off. Yeah.
Well, I'll even say like when my grandma passed away, I was really upset. I got the call from my mom. Was like, whoa, and my dog was like, she didn't jump on me, and she has a jumper. We've tried to train her. We've spent all this money. She still jumps. She didn't. She just followed me everywhere. And she's kind of a Velcro, but this was more like trying to make eye contact. Like, are you okay? Like, she was worried about me.
Yeah.
And even my husband, Sean, was like, she knows you're upset. And she just was like really tense, and didn't like whine to be walked that day, and like was just very like mellow. I was like, oh, dogs are so cool.
That's amazing. Your dog sounds a little bit more compassionate than mine. My dog doesn't really react to that kind of stuff. There was one time, because I've always noticed that, like, there have been times where, like, someone's crying nearby them and the dog's just like doesn't care. And one time I did that like full like faint hit the ground thing, just to see what she would do, and my hand happened to be like this, and she ran over and grabbed her ball and flopped it in my hand. It's like, come on,
could
Zoe.
you take care of this? Help me out.
Yeah. Perfect access. There's also another time where I was jogging with her and I tripped on the sidewalk and hit the ground, and she like came over and was like wagging her tail and like licking me and was just like, idiot. Like, it was like she seemed to be laughing. Like, it was funny. So I don't know if it's universal, this whole thing about dogs.
Well, they're probably like people, because they all have different personalities, right? Like, because my dog plays with the neighbor dogs, and I have to say, it's not just because Roxy's my dog that I think she's like super special. She's way more attuned. She's definitely sensitive though, which comes with its own, like, she's at the Borders now, and she's gonna be real mad when we get her, even though she loves the Borders. And like, when I drop her, she's like, see you never, bye. Like, she just runs off. She'll be mad that I left her there, and she'll be sad, and she just gets like butthurt about things. She's super sensitive. But then I think that goes both ways. She's super sensitive to us. She's super sensitive as a dog. She's also a pit bull. And I've had pit bulls growing up, and they've all been sensitive.
Yeah.
I don't know. People think they're like, "Rrr." I'm like, no, they're like the biggest wusses of dogs.
Right. They're just like incredible athletic freaks, but
Yes,
like so
super strong jaws, but ooh, so sensitive.
Yeah, they can be really. Well, now I'm curious what your dog question is.
Oh, yes. Why is it helpful to have a dog growing up?
Yeah,
As someone who always had animals, by the way, we had like guinea pigs and cats and dogs, and like in multitude. My mom could never say no, and my aunt worked at a shelter, so we had a lot of animals.
Me too. I grew up with I grew up with 3 dogs and 2 cats, and for some reason my parents got them all at the exact same time, or not within like a year. So they were all the same age. The house was full. We also had like goldfish and toads and whatever. Yeah. So I can say anecdotally from my experience that growing up with dogs helped me evolve socially in some way, right? Like you learn to understand the sort of thoughts and feelings of a nonverbal being that you care about. And especially for kids, like what could be more powerful than developing that skill early in life? Because empathy is something that we learn. It's not something that we're born with. We're born with the capacity. Yeah. So we're born with I mean, of course, we're genetically, we are capable of empathy. But the level of empathy that you sort of develop is largely dependent upon your experiences, starting even early, with like facial mimicry and
Interesting. So why would I? Okay, now I'm making it personal, because I've always been like my empathy is overwhelming to the point that like this is gonna make me sound like a little like. Well, I'm in therapy, don't worry. But like when I was a kid, I had this little like hammock that I would put my stuffed animals in. Okay. And I would rotate them so they all got equal playtime with me, because I'd feel bad.
Wow.
if they like felt left out.
How old do you think you were for that memory?
Probably like 6 or 7.
Okay. Yeah.
It makes me like almost laugh, cry. It was because I would feel so bad if like one got neglected.
Gosh. Yeah. Well, I think you found the right profession. Yeah, I mean, we need the experiences of just learning from social experiences to develop empathy, and a lot of other social skills as well. But there's a point that we probably don't remember. Most people don't remember, where you discover, like this person has feelings and needs and can be hurt, right? Like you get to that point of like theory of mind where it's like, it's not. I distinctly remember the moment in my life when I realized that I wasn't the only person like that could think, that the other people around me were also like conscious. Anyways.
Sounds silly, but you have to learn things along the way. And as a kid, you like realize, you have these realizations.
Yeah. And we all have these powerful moments where, you jokingly push the other kid down the slide and play, during recess, and you get in trouble and he bruises his knee and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That was really mean of me.
I'm sorry. They make you say, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have liked if I were them, empathy. What is it like to be in that experience? Anyhow, so with dogs, like what's a better way, especially when you need to develop empathy for experience and learning, what's a better way than to have a conscious being that you're taking care of, that you love and respect, but it cannot communicate to you. You have to sense and understand what it's doing and what it feels.
You have to try to put yourself in its place.
Right. And so there is some pretty promising evidence that having dogs in childhood can basically, it comes with a bunch of benefits. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but some of them are that like the children with childhood pets are less prone to like conduct problems and things like that.
I was going to ask, because then we know like a lack of empathy can lead to conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder. Then we can get into like narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, like all of the what we call like the darker lack of empathy type of things.
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense. It's you get that experience, and the kids are also, I believe, they're rated as more compassionate or more empathic by their like caregivers and teachers and stuff like that. There's an observable difference, and so I really I can relate to that, having had dogs growing up, and also I mean it's a beautiful thing to have animals growing up. Like I remember them participating in some of my earliest kind of more profound like moments in life, first day of school, those things. You come home or doing homework on the couch and they're just there, being there for you. That's providing that steady love. It's really valuable, and scientifically I think it also could help with like brain development in this social context.
Yeah, well, and I would think even for routine and like caring for someone. So it's something that our family did when we get a new pet. It either my brother or I, whoever got the last pet, I mean, it's family pets, but it'd be like you got to name it, and then you were responsible for feeding it and like walking it. Or if it was a cat, it was like then you had to clean the litter box, or you had to make sure it was brushed, or And we'd have like different responsibilities. And I think in general, I mean, as a therapist, I'm like, for kids, it's really important for them to like have a responsibility and see the impact of taking care of something.
Yeah.
And that's so much different than like I unloaded the dishwasher and I helped mom or dad out. This is like I watched this little kitten grow into a cat. I watched this puppy become a dog, and I get to care for it. You know.
Well, and the other thing that's amazing about dogs, specifically dogs, is that they have sort of hijacked our social bonding brain systems. In much the same way that I said that parent-child bonds, there's a ton of oxytocin, you feel drawn to the child, right? Because, I mean, let's be real, taking care of a child, as I'm going to soon learn with my first, is a lot of work from what I've heard. And, you have to be intensely motivated to do it.
That connection is important, or baby might not get taken care of.
Exactly. And with dogs, at some point in our history, it's probably between like 30 and 40,000 years ago, humans and dogs were sort of shoved together, and in order for it to, again, survival benefit. Existing with dogs increases our survival likelihood. So through evolution, we sort of created this system to keep us together. Also oxytocin. So when you look into your dog's eyes, you produce oxytocin, they produce oxytocin. Oxytocin is social reward. We feel reinforced. We want to be near the thing creating that sensation, whether it's our child, whether it's our romantic partner, or whether it's our dog. And by the way, the other thing that's really important about this is oxytocin isn't just like social glue. It is, but it does more. Oxytocin also has a bunch of incredible therapeutic properties. So it's like anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective. Oh, wow. It can help with wound healing. It can be anxiolytic. It has all these great systemic.
So again, social connection is good for you.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, the whole shebang.
Right. And I always tend to ask, like, why? Like, why would it be that way? Why would oxytocin not only help us stick together, but also be good for us physically? And I tend to think very evolutionarily. I always love to find
that fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes sense if you think about it. If you're in a position to mate, you find someone you love, oxytocin's being produced, it's really important for you to capitalize on that and be able to successfully reproduce. And so by having neuroprotective, anti-inflammatory effects, it basically improves overall health and therefore probably increases reproductive success.
Keeps you more youthful, healthier, and more able not only to reproduce, but also then to care for the child and to, because the whole point is for us to procreate, to connect, to make more humans. That's like a lot of why our body's wired the way it's wired. Like polyvagal theory is the belief that like it's through connection that my nervous system feels the best. I'm actually motivated and calmed simultaneously. I'm not agitated and I'm not like rest and digest. I'm just hanging.
Yeah.
Because they want us to spend, like, evolutionarily, it's good if we spend more time with people.
Yeah. I mean, it's telling to think that the way society works, at least Western culture, we have 5 work days and we have 2 days off. And so that means we have Friday night and Saturday night, these 2 precious evenings. How do people often spend this time?
With friends.
Globally, we hang out with friends, and oftentimes we go to these packed rooms where they serve a substance that eases our social anxieties to further accelerate our ability to connect and hang out.
Potentially procreate on accident, maybe.
Right, exactly. Like, how interesting is that we've kind of collectively decided, like, yeah, I think that all of society should, like, go, like, get dinner, get drinks,
go out.
hang out with friends on Friday and Saturday nights. It's, like, precious time, you know, and what if we were solitary animals, right? We would almost certainly spend that time sitting alone, not watching TV shows about social dynamics. We'd probably be watching TV shows about like hunting or something, you know, like that would be, it's so interesting to think about the way that where we come from, our evolutionary history, how it has shaped this like modern world. And we like, don't even think about it. It's like this brain chemistry
it's
stuff.
Like you can't get away from it, really.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like we have a shared experience. That's what I always tell people, especially nowadays, because people feel so divided. I'm like, we're so much alike. We're more alike than we want to admit. Don't let like media make you think different.
Yeah. And on that note, this is a really important point. Empathy, the ability, you know, which is sharing and understanding someone else's emotions. There's a lot of evidence showing that the amount of empathy you feel for someone is dependent upon self-other overlap. So if you think of a Venn diagram, you're one circle, let's say I'm one circle, you're one circle, right? Like, what do we have in common? What don't we have in common? Apply that to any person, right? It could be a person on a TV show that, you know, a character on Bravo or whatever. It could be a person on the street. It could be the person who just cut you off in traffic and you get a glimpse of them in the rearview mirror and you're like, you know, that person looks different from me.
Yeah.
The brain is, unfortunately, wired so that we feel less empathy for people who are unlike us. And what's important is to recognize that, I mean, one, that exists, which is problematic, but two, that is just our evolutionary like disposition. I truly believe that for probably everybody, maybe not everybody, but most people, is just how the brain works, and it's what happens next. You can override this, right?
Well, if empathy is learned, then you can still learn to care for someone who maybe you have nothing in common with.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like as a therapist, that's like part of our job.
Yeah.
It's like I might not have anything in common with a patient, but I'm not going to say that. They're not going to know that. And it's going to be my job to understand them and to help them teach me about their experience so that I can feel for them and try to help them.
Right. And for those going through something like that, if they're looking for a way to sort of accelerate that journey, find those things that are common ground. You know, broaden that, I don't know what you call it in a Venn diagram, but like the middle circle, right?
The overlap.
The sliver in the middle, you know, broaden that. Like, maybe they had a dog growing up. Maybe they watch the same TV shows as you. You know, maybe they also live in a, you know, one-story home. Whatever. It could be like literally anything. If you can identify that, it's super helpful, because literally there are studies where if you have some sort of common identity, whether it's like religious or political, you feel more empathy for those people. But when people in these studies are even assigned just an arbitrary value, this is one study I'm referring to is by Dr. David Eagleman. He's a friend and awesome guy, neuroscientist, author. They were assigned to be either Augustinian or Justinian. Meaningless.
I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. They're just like, you are now Augustinian.
It's like, you're purple, you're green. Okay.
Right. People, their brain regions associated with empathy were more active for others who were Augustinian or Justinian. It's like, it can be completely arbitrary, but if you have some common ground, your brain systems that drive empathy are more engaged, and therefore you feel differently. You feel empathy stronger.
So fascinating.
It's kind of scary.
It is scary, but I think awareness is the key.
Yeah.
That's why people like you need to be online.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's why I am.
I know, I love it. Where can people find you if they want to learn more, follow more? He's also doing this great series, you guys, where he debunks different supplements. Like, does ashwagandha really help you? Things like that.
Yeah, it's called Do Supplements Really Work? And I'm just analyzing I'm kind of reporting what happened or what we've seen in the science, because I haven't done the studies myself, but studies have been done on ashwagandha, lion's mane, you name it. And you just I keep getting fed so many ads for all these things. And every time I see one, I'm like, I wonder, like, the studies have been done. Yeah. So I'm just kind of putting all that together. Anyways, so I'm on like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and stuff, but and it's just Dr. Ben Rein, anywhere, Rein. I used to be Dr. Brain. I know. Yeah. Sadly, I changed it.
Makes sense. It's a little clearer, I guess. I understand. But I'll put all his links in the description, and where you can find his book. Comes out this October. Pre-orders are important. Remember, we got to do that. I feel like we have so many. I'll have you on again.
Yeah, totally.
But thanks for spending time with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it, and great conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. There's so much we could talk about. But
so much.
I was like, we could be here for 3 hours.